awaiting trial in jail, which we'll ask you as well. So our first question, do you want to ask it?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Good. That's good. Yeah, no, thank you.
That is so good. Everybody.
We just had that question actually.
Free transportation.
Yeah, we talked about making transportation free and making sure that kind of more of the outside of downtown hub has access. So building it out so that there's additional bus rapid transit service, so it's decreased intervals of time between when a bus will come will increase the likelihood of people without cars or people with cars will ride the buses.
And of course, with this question, with making it more affordable, it also means making it more accessible. So, like for people with disabilities that can't necessarily ride the bus too often, that's also something that goes with affordability.
Yeah.
So I think that's also something that we should probably discuss.
Yeah, we have access.
And then also increasing curb cuts so that people with wheelchairs and people with motorized wheelchairs have access to rolling through to get to a bus stop is a very important.
I think that's something that
we need to look at our sidewalks all over Durham to make sure that they're not inhibiting or barriers to
or
wheelchairs.
Even the roads, the ditches next to the bus stops.
So
we could expand access. I think the group that's now transporting those persons with mobility impairments, and we need more access buses. I believe, just based on what I've experienced with the Mayor's Committee on Persons with Disabilities.
So we're going to ask a question from our youth who are waiting trial in jail, and they wanted us to ask you, how would you make it easier for youth to get jobs after jail?
I have adopted a school, and it's Lakeview Alternative School. And one of the things that I believe we have to do is to focus on those students because they are very vulnerable. And by getting them jobs with the city, just by being a mentor and just being able to guide their journey will make it easier for us to get jobs for them. But just dealing with whatever issues that they're confronted with now, and working with city, the county, the private sector to employ them. I think, well, that's something that we're doing now with our youth programs. We have internships, but we need to be more focused on those kids that need them the most. And I think we should start with the kids at Lakeview. I really do, because they have some real needs that a lot of kids don't. They're there, and they need us to mentor them to go in and try to change their journey in life.
I would say that first it's incumbent upon me to say that there's a disproportionality involved in the kids that usually end up incarcerated. And so I think it's important to make sure that we address it through the justice system and making sure that there is not that disparity in who's arrested and who's charged and who's convicted. And on the other side of it, it's also an issue of making sure that the expungement process is adhered to, especially for youth who have finished their commitment to or their service or whatever the penalty was for whatever the crime was that they've committed. I'm not for certain how the city can have the impact on that process, but I do know that as a citizen in this community, I've worked very hard to make sure that people have access to the legal services necessary to do that. I've worked with the Southern Coalition of Justice, and I think that there's a process in place right now where we're looking to try and assist folks who have lost their license because they're pretty much living in poverty and haven't been able to pay the fines, to find ways to, or just being being intentional and finding ways to make sure that people who are poor and people who are of color aren't targeted in such a greater at such a great disproportionate rate. So there are many ways to do it, but I think that specifically for the case where there are children who are coming out of jail, it's important to make sure that they have access to legal services so that they can have their records expunged, so that they can pretty much have their records sealed where possible, and then so that their records don't inhibit them from actually having a life outside of the mistake that might have been made.
We also have letters from these youth in jail they wrote to you. Issues that they have. And we have our third question.
How would you better inform youth about things in Durham?
Whether city council or things that are occurring in Durham in general.
Tell you what I would like to do is to do what we did in the past and have a program for youth done by youth. We did have a television program that was hosted by youth for youth. I think that would be an excellent, and you look like a good candidate to start that. But it was very effective, and youth really tuned in to it. But it was stopped because we could not get a youth in the commission to step up to the plate and host it. But I think the time is right now because we have folk who are interested. Plus, better use of social media. From the Youth Commission, you could take that job on and make sure that our youth are more informed about things that are happening in city government. So the Youth Commission is there, is in place for you to do all the kinds of things that you can think of creatively to involve and engage youth in city government. So the mechanism is in place. We started the Youth Commission years ago, and so it's there for the Youth Commission to take advantage of. And then you can get Destiny. Destiny is really good. You don't have to use youth necessarily in a commission. You can use youth from outside of the commission and engage them on those issues or topics that you think, based on your conversations with your peers, would appeal to them in the media.
So, if you could repeat the question, I think I understood, but I want to make sure that I didn't miss it.
How would you better inform the youth about things that are occurring in Durham or in the city council?
And I think that the best way to inform the youth in the community is to talk to them through schools and through daycare centers, and to actually engage based on their medium of resources. So whether it's by cell phone, a text message, Snapchat, or social media, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, I think it's important to make sure that you're engaging on the medium that the kids really want to hear it on. And so I think there have been a few campaigns run through through the East Durham Children's Initiative organization where kids have pretty much reached out to each other, and I think the peer-to-peer is the best way. The one thing is to make sure that the information is available, not just as in written words, but also in art. I think it's important to have photos and also visual aids that actually speak to kids in different ways. So people receive information in different ways, and I think that it's important to make sure we capture that.
Hunter, did you want to ask your question?
About what? Oh yeah. So you've probably figured out by now that we kind of have I would call it a shortage in dog parks around Durham because we only have, well, first of all, we only have about 4, but they're spread out over a big area, like there's one every big area. And I have to say that there's also a point towards normal parks, and I think we have to expand dog parks and really just parks in general. We need to expand them. And I also noticed that there are some parks that would have about 50 kids a day, and there are some that would have about 5 kids a day.
Yeah.
So we need to kind of make the quality equal. That's something that
That's a very good point. We actually just left a meeting where I was talking about this toxic mulch in the park and being cognizant of how there's an inequity in how the parks attend to the needs of the folks around them. And so just making sure that there are people who are listening at all times to the voices of the people in the community around how the park should be used or set up, and pretty much the removal of this toxic mulch would be important. I would say that the best thing to do in the case of increasing the dog parks would be to make sure that when developers come in, that they know that this is a need or a priority in the Durham community, and that they actually attend to making sure that not only green space is allotted, but dog parks could be allotted as well. So.
I have 2 grand dogs, a pug and they would love more parks.
Thank you for the letters.